Hi there and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to explore how we can use VBA to identify the current network username. So the person that's logged into the PC, what's their network username? Now, why would we do this? Well, basically it comes down to security. We can use this to automatically authenticate if someone's allowed to use a database. We can also use this within the database itself to recognize the user and therefore apply security. Do they have the right to open a form, to view a report, and things like that? In more advanced systems, what I do typically is I have my users that obviously are in an authentication table, but then they get linked to groups, and the groups dictate what each user has the ability to do and not do, where they're restricted. But at the base of all of the security elements, it's always the same thing. It's the first step is, how do we identify the current user? So as you see on the screen, I have 5 different approaches. You can look through here. You'll see the code is very straightforward. It's always freely available on my site. You just go copy, paste, and it works. As you can see, some of the approaches are very simple, one-liners, and then you get into things like WMI, you get into APIs where, yes, the code is more complex, but perhaps, as we'll see in a minute, perhaps they're more reliable. Last but not least, I'm providing also a PowerShell approach. Okay, so let's just dive in. The best way to learn is just to do, and so let's open up database here. So all it is, I have a series of modules where I copy-pasted what's in my article. That's it. What I've done is for each one, I created a simple subroutine where I'm doing a debug. So it's going to print out here in my immediate window. That's it. So let's just take a look at the very first case, which is using the built-in function right there. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to run it. And very quickly, as you can see, it gives me my username. I'm happy. It worked. So let's take a look at the second option. We use, instead here, we're using a create object of the WScript.Shell. So let's see what that gives. Same result. I'm happy. Thirdly, we move on. Another WScript, but this time we're using the network. We're going to go get the username there. And there we go. It worked equally. So let's move on to WMI. It's obviously more involved because we have to go get the collection, iterate over the collection. I'm going to build up a dictionary, and then I'm going to loop through that dictionary. Now, there are different ways of doing this. I could stop the loop realistically. We should only have one user. But anyway, for the case of being complete in my coding, I did it this way. And then we can just have a simple routine here, like I said, that iterates over the output and returns the value. If we do that, WMI gives us the exact same value. So far, we're getting lots of different options here that we can use in our code. Here's the VBA API approach. As you can see here, this was written a long time ago on the Web Access website and was freely posted there for years. All I did was tweak the declarations up here to make it 64-bit compliant. And once again, I'm just going to debug, print out the result of that function. And the API also gives us that value. Lastly but not least, we have the PowerShell approach. There are 2 possible ways. Well, there's probably even more than 2, but 2 that I present in my article. So if we look at the first one, there we go. Daniel, it worked beautifully. And if we look at the second one, it also went and got Daniel perfectly. I hope you did notice, however, that out of all of the options, the PowerShell, there is a delay, and that's normal. We're now taking something that we'd normally run in VBA, and we're shoving it out to another program, another process that we have to initialize. So we have to start PowerShell and then run the command, then pass it back. So obviously there's extra overhead and all of that. So for me, PowerShell, although very powerful and can do things that nothing else can even remotely come close to doing, this isn't one of the cases where it makes sense to use it. There are cases, but for just getting the username, the computer name, things like that, no. Just avoid PowerShell. It's going to hit you in the performance, and it's going to cause delays in execution of code for no reason when there are really much better alternatives. Now, that all said, you're going to see I mentioned here and in my article, do not use. So let's take a look for a moment why I'm saying that. So I'm just going to close out of the database for a second. Now, I'm going to make one small change in a command. And now I'm going to launch the exact same database. We'll go into the same database, the exact same thing. Now let's look at the outputs for a moment. So, what is going on here? Now suddenly I'm John. And if we check the next one, I'm also John. Oh, I'm back to Daniel. And just to be 100% clear, on this computer, I am logged in as Daniel. So we'll talk about the John in 1 second, but we're going to run them all, see what the results are, and then we'll discuss it briefly. So we go finally to even PowerShell. And there we go. So as you can see here, we have 3 methods. And if you pay attention, it relies on the system environment. And the first 2, if you look at it, what command are we using? And what are we doing here? Expand environment string. So anything that relies on environment variables cannot be depended on for security. They can easily be spoofed. I can impersonate being anyone. So if that is your sole level of control for security, don't ever use those techniques. Now, if you also are going to use, there has to be a password and things like that, maybe you can get away with them. But realistically, when you have such a simple solution as this right here, which is the one I recommend typically, where in just this, you can get the username. You don't need APIs. You don't have declarations, and you have to worry about bitness. You don't have to outsource it to PowerShell. Just this gets you your username, your computer name. That's the way to go. It's reliable. It doesn't get spoofed, and you're able to move forward with it. What I do in my systems typically is when the database opens, part of my auto-exec routine, I will go get this variable, and I will pass it to a temporary variable or a global variable. Then I have it in memory, and I don't need to worry about it again. I could also use a self-healing variable, which I have also done in the past. So lots of options there. That way I don't have to keep rerunning this create over and over and over. It's a waste of resources once again. But for access, a temp var is ideal for this, and then you can just refer to the temp variable whenever you need to check the person's username. In other applications, obviously, you don't have that, so you'd go to a global variable most probably. And that's the end of the discussion. Like I say, everything you need is here, so feel free to peruse, feel free to test things out. As you see, I literally just copy-pasted, so these are accurate and fully functional, and I highly recommend just simply using the WScript.Network approach for any of your username needs. So I hope that helps a few of you out there. I'm fumbling for words apparently today, and I will wish you all a great end of day, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.